We have a leak. In this episode of Southeast Mk2 Golfs, we will be going through how we are going to fix it. So, welcome to Southeast Mk2 Golfs. Annoyingly, we have another leak on this car. This is going to be the death of me because ever since we've had the conversion done back in 2017, we have had nothing but problems with the coolant. And I'm going to tell you what we have done in the past to try and resolve those faults.
Over time, we have been chasing our tail trying to find the source of this coolant problem we've been having. We had changed the water pump, coolant bottle and cap, and pipework, and yet still were blowing radiators. And thanks to the most recent leak, the coolant had risen inside the coolant bottle, and this was due to a blown radiator once again. Time for a permanent fix.
First step, jack up your car.
An old trick used to seal a leaky radiator was to crack an egg into the coolant system. Alternatively, a rad weld type additive would be used. These work by making a seal when they make contact with air, but they actually have the same effect as running high cholesterol. What will start to happen is the areas that have built up inside the radiator will break off and then block up the coolant channels. This can then cause engine hotspots, a blocked radiator, or even a head gasket failure. You need to strip down the front end so the grille comes off, the indicators are removed and the bulb holder detached, and the cross member and bumper bolts are removed.
Now this car is fitted with a Corrado alloy radiator. It's got the outlet coming out the top, and it basically doesn't fit as standard, so it has had these Heath Robinson style brackets welded into the slam panel, and they're not painted, so they have rusted quite badly. I don't like the way that sits. The feet don't actually go into the radiator support bracket, so that is another thing we are going to change. Now, we're doing this radiator because this is the fourth one that I've had to replace in 4 years. This exact one has actually only lasted 6 weeks. So it is a complete and utter steaming turd in my opinion. What we think has been happening is where the head gasket has failed in the past, it's been overpressurizing the coolant system. Ordinarily what would happen is it would find the weakest point to pop something off. Ordinarily that would be a hose, but each time it's actually been the radiator which has blown. And this one, it was blown actually before the work was actually done on the engine. So even when we rebuilt it, took it on its first drive and everything seemed wonderful. Then we got back and it was weeing coolant everywhere. So that is why we are changing this. How many jacks does it take to jack up your car? Now the reason we have done this is because we've had to take the front cross member off, and therefore giving us access to the radiator support panel for when we change that later. Oh, look like my foot.
For peace of mind and whilst access is readily available, we change the thermostat too. Being fussy, I'll replace it with a genuine VW item.
I'm going to pop out the old thermostat and put in the new one.
We now break out the cutting disc to remove those slam panel brackets.
Now we've come up with a bit of a problem with this radiator. So it is actually shorter in height, but to compensate that, it was mounted on top of the radiator support bracket like this. However, our new radiator, which I shall demonstrate here, is taller. So if you try and mount that in the same place, it sits really quite high and the slam panel sits like that. So what we're going to have to do is position it on this bit here so that it actually sits lower down and the slam panel passes over the top. But that will actually allow the radiator to sit squarer and straighter and hopefully provide better airflow.
With the radiator put in a position where it rests happy, we now measure and cut the new coolant hoses and joiners.
With the radiator now mocked up in place, we have the top hoses cut to length with all the angles sorted and in place.
With the top hoses in place, we cut the bottom hoses to size for a test fitment. Once again, the angry grinder comes out to play to remove small bits off the slam panel that foul the radiator.
We are going to put a bracket out here with a holder for this foot of the radiator here, and then same on this side here for that foot.
Yeah.
And then up here we're just going to have it, shouldn't need too much, but just enough just to put it a little bit up so it's clear with that bit there. So using cardboard to ensure that the radiator is clear of everywhere that it would touch, we now can weld in the brackets.
Using the magic of CAD for a bracket template, we then cut, punch, drill and file out our brackets. They are now ready to be welded onto the radiator support panel. Welds cleaned up and then painted, the radiator support panel can go back in the car and then the radiator mounted.
So we've completely lost light, but we have the radiator support bracket with the additional brackets welded on, and they have a coat of primer on, which should now allow the radiator to sit quite nicely, like so, like that. And all we need to do now is just connect the hoses on. So the radiator is in. We have loads of room at the back of the radiator because it's now mounted forward. I still have to integrate the fans, but because of that extra room, we have plenty of options to play with. So we could even go with a full Mk3 shrouding to direct the airflow through the radiator, which would be a positive. We'll have to look into that. But the car is now bleeding. We will be driving home, which is about 45 minutes of pure highway or motorway, so the lack of fans shouldn't be a problem. We are good to go.
Hopefully leak free.
We are hopefully leak free. Doesn't look like we have anything. So that is how you change a radiator from an absolute piece of junk Corrado alloy rad to a genuine Mk3 VR6 radiator with the proper outlets. Thanks so much for watching Southeast Mk2 Golfs. See you next time.